We've looked at the villains from studios like Disney, Dreamworks, and Illumination, but it's finally time to rank the baddies spawned by Warner Brothers Animation. From Space Jam to the Lego Movie, which evil-doer is the most vile?
Prove I'm your greatest enemy.
Hey guys, I'm Brad with Wicked Binge, and this is Warner Animation Villains, evil to most evil. At the top of the countdown, we have the Stonekeeper from WB's 2018 animated outing, Smallfoot. The Stonekeeper is at the bottom of our ranking because when you look at his crimes, he really isn't a villain. While he does fill the role of the antagonist in the film's story, he's not out to conquer the world or wipe out all who oppose him. Instead, he does his best to protect his village from all threats, and it's that goal that forces him into conflict with the film's heroes.
You will be banished from the village. What?
While he does do a few things that you would expect from a villain, like trying to destroy the heroes, all that is born out of wanting what is best for him and his people. Beyond that, after his plan is foiled and he's left defeated, he reforms and works to become a better person, being one of the few WB animation villains to do so. Going from one reformed villain to another, next is the Lego Movie's own Lord Business. Otherwise known as President Business, this Will Ferrell-voiced Lego minifigure is your average corrupt politician, leader, and businessman all rolled into one. A perfectionist to the core, his plan in the first film is to use a mysterious object known as Kraggle to glue everything and everyone in Bricksburg forever. Lord Business has no problem disposing of those who stand in his path to victory.
It's not personal. It's just business.
He will hunt them down at every turn, and if possible, destroy them. Clearly, Mr. Business is more obviously a villain than the Stonekeeper was, but as we said earlier, like him, this CEO turns a new leaf. Not only does he learn the error of his ways, but he even makes a surprise return in the film's sequel, making him one of the only villains here to appear in more than one film. Lord Business might strive for things to be a little too perfect, but due to his redemption, we can't rank him any lower. But get ready, because we're going back to 1996 for the next villains. That's right, from Space Jam, we have the Monstars. Alternatively known as the Nerdlucks, these antagonistic aliens, led by greedy CEO, Mr. Swackhammer, who we'll talk about later, are on a mission to capture the Looney Tunes and make them the newest attraction to Moron Mountain. After the Tunes challenge them to a basketball game,
we challenge you to a basketball game.
The Nerdlucks steal the abilities of some of the NBA's top stars, turning them into the maniacal Monstars. In a nutshell, that is the entirety of their actions in the movie. Taking the talent of athletes and planning to kidnap cartoon characters is definitely bad, but it's small potatoes compared to later entries. Besides that, the Nerdlucks, much like their two predecessors, do get redeemed in the film's climax. They turn their backs on their corrupt boss, make up with the Looney Tunes, and give their abilities back to the basketball players they took them from. Also hurting their standing is that they aren't exactly the sharpest villains, earning them the Darwin Medal. Their redemption, mixed with a tamer set of goals, makes them a bit more forgivable. Up next, we have Hunter from Storks. Hunter is like Lord Business and Swackhammer, another money-hungry businessman. After one delivery went horribly wrong, Hunter, the head of Cornerstone, decrees that no more babies are to be delivered by Storks under any circumstances. Kind of like the Stonekeeper, his mission is noble, but he goes about it horribly. He tries to kill both Junior, one of his most trusted Storks, and the human, Tulip, after they create a delivery order for a baby. However, unlike his predecessors, Hunter never learns the error of his ways. Instead, he continues working to defeat Junior and Tulip, going as far as trying to take them with him in his final moments. Hunter is our first entry who is truly evil, and that's what gives him a leg up over the likes of the Nerdlucks or Lord Business. Alright, time for the villain from the second Space Jam movie, AIG Rhythm. The ruler of the serververse, AIG is an untrustworthy computer program who is obsessed with LeBron James, which makes him the recipient of our Lust Medal. He wants ownership of his likeness, challenges him to a basketball game, and even manages to trick his son into being loyal to him for a time. As the film continues, he becomes more deranged, eventually culminating in him trying to kill LeBron, his son, the Looney Tunes, and whoever else dares to cross him. Out of all the villains we have looked at thus far, he is easily the worst, but he falls short compared to others due to being a pretty shallow character. He's not nearly as complex or as developed as some other villains are, making for a pretty one-note villain. Now it's time for the Iron Giant, and its villain, Kent Mansley. An agent of the US government, Mansley journeys to Rockwell to get to the bottom of what appears to be a case of an alien robot having landed in the area. Though he's sent by the government, Mansley secretly has his own objectives in mind with his mission.
We are going to destroy it before it destroys us!
He hopes to use the Iron Giant to advance his government career and works his hardest to stop anyone from finding this out. He soon grows obsessed with destroying the Giant, further positioning him as the film's main villain. Kip Mansley is more corrupt than he is outwardly evil, which keeps him out of a higher position on this list, but he's still not an antagonist to be treated lightly. He's undeniably manipulative and conniving. In some ways, that actually makes him more threatening as a villain. Get inside the mystery machine as we work to track down the next villain on our list, the one and only Dick Dastardly. Typically accompanied by the cantankerous canine Muttley, Dastardly is determined to enter the underworld to save his previously mentioned Mutt. He's also out to find all fortunes the underworld may hold, and he's willing to dispatch anyone who may stand in his way of his plans. Whether it's the superhero Blue Falcon or the mystery-solving Scooby-Doo, Dick Dastardly will try his hardest to succeed in his mission. While the classic version of Dastardly was pretty incompetent, this version is a lot more threatening, as evidenced by his rivalry with the Blue Falcon. However, though this version of Dick Dastardly is a lot more evil, he's a bit more sympathetic. He genuinely cares about Muttley as a friend, which is shown by how dedicated he is to entering the underworld. Sure, he's interested in exploring its riches, but it's obvious that he cares about his partner in crime, something that cannot be said for many others here today. However, all the bonding and companionship means little when you want absolute power, and will destroy anyone who gets in the way. He may be nicer to Muttley in this incarnation, but to everyone else, not so much. Going back to Space Jam, how about we look at its sister film, Back in Action, and more importantly its villain, Mr. Chairman. Yep, we're looking at yet another businessman villain. While he's all about control and profit margins like the rest of these types of villains, this one stands apart from the rest in that he's flesh and blood. That difference earns him the Greed Medal. And how could we forget, he also wants to turn all of mankind into monkeys. Those who oppose him, he sets out to destroy, making him more like the other villains we've already talked about. Well, that then begs the question, since Mr. Chairman is so similar to prior villains, what is it he does that makes him more of a threat? Well, if we're being honest, which do you think sounds more evil? Gluing your entire city, stopping babies from being delivered, or turning all humans into monkeys? We think it's the last one, and we'd be very surprised to hear otherwise. Next is Lord Garmadon. The father of Lloyd Garmadon, this Dark Lord has only two things on his mind: taking over Ninjago and spending some quality father-son time with Lloyd. From just that little tidbit, we can tell that Garmadon isn't your typical mustache-twirling villain. Now, that isn't to say that he isn't a bad guy. He frequently terrorizes Ninjago and its citizens and has little qualms about disposing of his henchmen. However, he does genuinely want to be a good father to his son, even if Lloyd is, rather understandably, a little weary of him. Lord Garmadon is even saddened when his son tells him he doesn't want to spend time with him, showing a level of humanity that most villains from this studio's library lack. And although it's a predictable twist, Garmadon is redeemed by the film's end, which pushes him back toward the lower portion of this list. Though he is redeemed, it doesn't necessarily erase the countless beings Garmadon harmed or potentially killed in his many attempts to take over Ninjago. Whether he's allied with the forces of good or evil, one thing is for sure: this is one LEGO minifigure you don't want to mess with. Time to look at one of WB's more obscure animated features, Cats Don't Dance, by examining its similarly overlooked villainess, Darla Dimple. A big star with a big temper, Darla is a child star obsessed with fame, fortune, and everything that comes with that. As such, it's not all that surprising that she'll do anything she can to remain famous, and that includes getting rid of any who might steal that fame from her. Sounds like the best choice for the Envy Medal if you ask us. Once animals begin to break into the performing arts, Darla Dimple works overtime to prevent them from getting the spotlight. She begins by banning them from performing outright, but eventually she attempts to drown them to get rid of them once and for all. While previous villains may have tried eliminating their adversaries or wanted to take over a particular location, Darla is the first individual on this list to have attempted to take out an entire group of people. Let's go back to the world of the LEGO Movie for a moment as we look at the villain of its sequel, Rex Dangerfest. A rogue version of Emmett from an alternate timeline, Rex was abandoned by those closest to him and goes back in time to make sure the horrific event known as Armageddon comes to pass. That objective alone is reason enough to put him above everyone else we've looked at so far. But there's another reason we place him so high. Rex is obsessed with his past self, and while that's nothing particularly new for the villains of Warner Animation, Rex's obsession with Emmett goes a lot further than others do. As Emmett is quite literally Rex, a big goal in his mission is to make sure Emmett goes down the same path as he did, otherwise he wouldn't exist. He works his hardest to break down Emmett, ensuring he will become him one day, which shows a level of manipulation and treachery nobody else we've looked at today can compare to. While Rex Dangerfest isn't the last LEGO villain we'll be looking at here, of those featured in the LEGO movie duology, he's far and away the worst there is. His name might be silly, but he himself is anything but. Next is Jonathan Jacobo. A classic mad scientist antagonist, Jacobo is another villain motivated by a need for revenge. In his case, he wants to destroy all of Mystery Inc. for throwing him in prison. Not only does he want them gone, but he's also focused on ruining their reputation and morale before that happens. In a way, he's similar to Rex Dangerfest, but just a little bit more mad, which is why we give him the edge over his LEGO companion. He also goes even further to ruin Mystery Inc. than Rex ever did to ruin Emmett. He creates an entire news anchor persona just to slander them. In addition to his efforts to destroy Scooby and the gang, he's out to wipe out Coolsville once and for all. That makes him the first villain who sets out to kill as many as possible. Others so far have only wanted to conquer, or have had their sights set on a particular group, like how Darla wanted to get rid of every animal actor. Jacobo, on the other hand, definitely puts the mad and mad scientist. Jonathan is one of the scarier villains Scooby has gone up against, and more than a crotchety businessman in a monster suit. Next, let's talk about the Joker, or the LEGO version to be exact. Honestly, is it any surprise that the Joker is this high? Even in LEGO form, this clown is no laughing matter. Like most versions of the character, he's out to annihilate Gotham and take over the world. Unlike other depictions, however, he also wishes for Batman to claim he is his greatest enemy. The Joker is always obsessed with Batman, but very few incarnations have zeroed in on it as much as the LEGO Batman movie does. Further setting this Joker apart from others is that he actually helps Batman save Gotham, showing that he has more of a conscience than both other Jokers and other members of Batman's rogues gallery. That being said, LEGO Joker is still the Joker. Though he might not be as ruthless or as maniacal as some versions of the character, he's still a genuine threat to Gotham City and all of its inhabitants. We've now reached the bottom 5. Taking our 5th place for most evil, we have Mr. Swackhammer from Space Jam, voiced with devilish charm by Danny DeVito.
We need new attractions.
Swackhammer is the owner of Moron Mountain, an intergalactic amusement park teetering on the brink of financial ruin. Fueled by ruthless determination to salvage his failing business, Swackhammer concocts a diabolical plan to enslave the beloved Looney Tune characters and transform them into attractions for Moron Mountain. With powers encompassing wealth, manipulation, authority, and charisma, Swackhammer stops at nothing, committing crimes ranging from abuse of power to attempted kidnapping and even slavery. Honestly, that one scene where he tells Michael Jordan the terms of his bet if he loses is one of those really unsettling dark scenes that feel out of place in lighthearted kids movies. His ill-tempered nature is evident as he berates the Nerdlucks, his minions turn monsters, in his pursuit of making Moron Mountain the most successful theme park in the universe. Luckily, in the end, the once mighty Swackhammer is left defeated, penniless, and possibly stranded on the moon, symbolizing the consequences of his greedy, wicked endeavors. The 4th place evil pick goes to Lord Ruber of Quest for Camelot, an animated villain who hams it up to the 10th degree, getting him the Pride Medal. Ruber is out for power, little more and little less. He sets out on a quest to take Excalibur and use it to take over Camelot, and after that, the entire world. Ruber is different from a lot of the other villains we've looked at in that he is quite physically capable. Unlike others who tend to sit back and let their minions do all the work, Ruber is powerful and a real force to be reckoned with. He can take down almost anyone in a straight fight, which gives him a more threatening aura. His lust for power is another big reason why he ranks so high. While many other villains from WB have been interested in taking over the world and destroying those who oppose them, few seem to be as competent in doing so as Lord Ruber. Admittedly, when your competition is mostly made up of Looney Tunes and LEGO villains, that seems kind of easy to do, but it's still a clear reason he has a leg up over his fellow baddies. It's time to get microscopic. Yes, our Bronze Medal of Evil, as well as our Wrath Medal, goes to none other than Thrax from Osmosis Jones. Thrax is a deadly virus, and while that may sound redundant to some, he's got a body count to back it up. By the time he enters the body of Frank DeTore, he's already killed 3 people. That already makes him more of a genuine danger than everyone else we've looked at so far. But when you factor in that one of those victims was a child,
Took me 3 whole weeks.
it makes him an even bigger and more obvious villain than the rest of the lot. He fails to kill Frank, Osmosis Jones and the rest in the end, but that doesn't erase those that he did eliminate. Beyond the 3 humans he killed, he takes out several of the beings who reside within Frank's body. That makes him one of the few WB villains to have killed characters on screen. Even over 20 years since Osmosis Jones was released, Thrax remains one of the more popular villains WB Animation has created, and for great reason. He's a villain who will take your breath away, and we mean that literally. The silver medal of evil goes to Lulu, a guinea pig that is the personal pet of Lex Luthor. Lulu is living proof of the theory that animals often emulate their owners. Second thought, maybe not. That would imply Lulu is every bit as dangerous and treacherous as Lex, when in reality, she's even worse than he is. In one film, Lulu turns her back on Luthor, captures the Justice League, and nearly wipes out the League of Super Pets. Do you know how villainous you have to be if you can defeat the Justice League? And of course, she wants to take over the world, as any comic book supervillain would. However, unlike others, Lulu seems like a villain who could succeed in that goal. She has superhuman powers, and few can go toe-to-toe with her in a straight fight. And did we mention she can take care of the Justice League? There's nobody else on this list who can accomplish something like that, so she has to be at the top. But still, there is one more villain who outdoes Lulu in the evil department. The gold medal of evil goes to Scrappy Doo? Yeah, that sounds incredibly silly, and it is, but when we looked at all of the villains, their abilities, goals, and accomplishments, Scrappy was the obvious pick for the worst of the worst. Think about it. In the span of one movie, he constructs a complex plot to kill Mystery Inc., releases a demon army, and tries to take over the entire planet. Is there a single villain we've looked at here that had such a heinous and insane mission? In all honesty, it's not too surprising that Scrappy Doo is our #1 pick. The crew behind the film said it was their objective to make sure nobody came away liking Scrappy, and turning him into the biggest villain Scooby has ever faced is a good way to do that, and he would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for those meddling kids. Scrappy may not have succeeded, but he can at least find peace in being the most evil character WB Animation has ever given us. Sometimes being so unpopular and so hated has its advantages.